Thank you very much. Just like Karim, I was hoping Karim, usually when Karim speaks before me, and usually when Karim speaks, he gives the answers and I bring the questions. And he didn't notify me that he doesn't bring any answers. I have also much more questions, also because I'm not here representing the Israeli side, but as a director in METO, my concerns. Karim said it's just the beginning. And I fully agree with him. This is an unfolding situation, but it is an unfolding situation that is one brick in a very long way of the superpowers game inside the Middle East. I mean, it's not something where even, I mean, if there was one thing I would think we should learn from this, is that the superpowers game playground in the Middle East was not in the benefit of the Middle East. And I think that this is something we all already know, but until there's peace and unity in the Middle East, we can't do much about it. But it's a long, long game. Russia and the US are trying to divide the Middle East between them, just like UK and France did in the past, a bit more successfully. I guess it was more, there was more clarity then. But if it's a beginning of something, and as an activist and not an academic, I'm looking forward and I'm looking at what should I worry about. And the things that I'm worrying about are, and sorry to sound hippie, is lack of faith. I mean, one of the things that hold society as we know it is the belief in some rules, is the belief in the international power of the international law, in some standards. Now, we saw a beginning of lack of belief, not just with the war between Russia and the Ukraine. We saw the beginning of the lack of belief when Trump administration removed US from a working agreement, the JCPOA. And now there's another block when Russia is behaving differently than we expected it to behave at the beginning of the new round of the JCPOA. This is one thing. The second thing is states that rely on the superpowers to protect them from within the Middle East, states within, and I am talking now mainly about Israel, but Israel is not alone there, looking at the US and the NATO abilities to stop Russia in the Ukraine. And I guess this is also another huge dent in the belief that we are somehow protected just by association, which means that states in the Middle East will need to start looking at other guarantees. And the question is what these guarantees will be. And when I'm talking about the lack of belief, I am looking very much at the upcoming November conference. Will we see the states from the Middle East and Iran sitting in the same room with the four superpowers? The US won't be there, Russia will be there. At the first meeting of the states, Russia's support at the November conference, at the UN conference on the zone, was a bliss. Is it now the same bliss? I mean, one of the superpowers that actually supports the zone is now, I'm not trying to take sides, but the vast majority of the world is the villain. How will this affect the November conference? I think that the states in the Middle East are looking at this hesitance of the US and NATO, and they need to readjust how they are dealing with Russia. But I'm looking at also at Israel and Syria, and the fear that that Israel won't be able to operate in Syria the way that it is, and the fear or the look or the way that the media and other states are reacting to the fact that the NATO and US reaction seems like a weak one, means that diplomatic means look like weak procedure in answer to power. And that worries me even further, because that makes me think that people might think that diplomacy is weakness, while asserting power is the only thing that might work? And how will that affect the Middle East and the future talks in the Middle East? Another thing that I'm looking at, what will a new order in the Middle East will look like, and how it will play effect at the November conference. Because right now, what we see in the November conference is the Arab states and Iran actually working in a way that we never expect them to work together. And this is a miracle by itself. And I wonder if this will continue, how will it look like? But just like Karim said, this is a beginning of a process. But the only thing that, I mean, the real big change was that up till now, it was all diplomacy, most of it. It was all diplomacy, and now it's power, and we're looking to see how this game will leak into the Middle East, and there's not much we can do about it. Just notice and see, and hope that it will not affect the November conference as such. And of course, before the November conference, we're going to have the NPT, and before that, the TPNW, but the big game will be at the NPT, and we'll see how states will react to that, and how will a review conference will look like, will look at it. I think that one of the beliefs that was shattered, and this is a dangerous belief to be shattered, is nuclear deterrence. I think that the minute that in the Middle East, we saw Russia threatening with nuclear weapons, even though they didn't say it directly, it was very much understood that this is the threat, and the way that the US and NATO cannot do much against this reaction might cause some states in the region to believe that nuclear weapons are the only deterrence, are the only protection, and is the only way to do whatever you want with no one answering you. And this is a threat to the current situation in the Middle East. And I want to say something that is much more an activist, humanist. I think that one of the things that we're not discussing here, because we're talking about weapons of mass destruction, is kids, children in the Middle East are dying by the thousands every week. And they do not get the attention that Ukrainians are. And I hate counting dead bodies. It is appalling in my eyes. But my worry is, we see what happened in the Ukraine. We see how much people care about the victims of the war in Ukraine, and yet there's not much that can be done to assist and help them. What does it mean for states in the Middle East if they're under attack? I am afraid of more extremism because of it. I'm afraid of, on one hand, more games of the superpowers in the Middle East, because in order to be a superpower, apparently you have to have some kind of game in the Middle East. And thank God for, or thank not God, but the wisdom of Karim and Lina that shared, and Ali, that shared the economical interest in the Middle East. But my fear is the lack, and again, I'm going to it, the lack of belief in the international system, in diplomacy, and in the ability to receive help when we will really need it. How will that cause the states to behave? And I'm sorry to leave with just questions and observations, but thank you very much.